Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our TNA show for the week. First off, let's jump into it with the so-so segments of the week. The stuff that wasn't bad, wasn't good, just there. First off, we want to talk about the opening segment with MVP, Magnus, Biss, and Joe. Basically showing us there's a new regime. Joe's still the number one contender, setting up a match for him to get retribution against Joe. MVP introduces his way he's going to run things. Motivate, validate, participate. Motivate the wrestlers to be better, validate their arguments by giving them matches, and participate when he needs to kick someone in the ass. Decent opening segment. I'm just tired of this style segment opening every single show, whether it be TNA or WWE, so the whole thing in wrestling burns me out with this. Next up we have, it goes right into after the commercial break, Biss versus Samoa Joe. Biss picks up the win when during the match Eric Young comes down and attacks Biss, basically, resetting up their feud going forward, giving Joe an ally in his feud against Magnus and Biss. I've seen the two of them have better. I almost put it in the bad segment because I absolutely hate Abyss's new mask. I really do. It looks to me like the newest incarnation of Kane's mask, just painted a different color. And I don't know what they were trying for with that. It kind of gives me a Jason X type feeling, a Kane Nor mask. There was nothing wrong with the mask that Biss wore before. Maybe a little bit of tweaking would have been okay. Yeah, I just don't like it. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. To me, it takes away from the character. Next up, we had our debuting Brittney versus Gail Kim. Got a little package explaining who Brittney was. Nice way to introduce her. However, they used this match instead of a way to get a new talent over, is a way to build a feud between Gail Kim and Lady Tapa, where we see after the match they finally, Tapa's finally tired of Gail Kim pushing her around. I would have liked it better if this would have been something where Brittney faces off somebody else that doesn't necessarily have a feud that's going to be set for her, so we can see and we understand, where this girl's going to go going forward. Not bad. They're definitely better than anything that WWE gives us women's division-wise. Now next up, our bad segments of the week. Surprisingly, there's only one. And that would be the Dixie Carter tribute with Rockstar, Spud, and EC3. Honestly, this shouldn't have been on this list. If they could have compressed it to about a 3-4 minute segment, it would have worked fine. But they drug it out. They brought out MVP. They brought out Bobby Lashley. I mean, the whole thing, in my opinion, it just drug on too long. And that's... Sorry, folks, I'm battling with a little bit of a cough here. That is why I put it in the bad segment, because it took what would have been a good 4 or 5 minute segment most and stretched it into about 12. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go right into our question of the week. Now, the question was, do you like the idea of an all-cage pay-per-view? All-cage match pay-per-view, being that Lockdown was last week. Here's some answers from our friends. First is from Zombies40. The matches at Lockdown also have gimmicks in some matches, like Joe's rules for the main event match with Joe and Magnus, the last man standing match with Gunner and Storm, and of course Lethal Lockdown. So I think there's a variety in the matches that make it more interesting for the fans. Solid point there. Next is from our friend Silver84. I like that it's an all-steel cage pay-per-view because why have a gimmick pay-per-view if there are only a few matches in the cage? Another good point as well. Last but not least, our good friend Chris Mull from the Deadly Sins. He puts as far as the question of the week, I think it's a terrible idea to have every match in a cage. I think only the main event should be in a cage. Keep the other matches should be regular matches, or to keep things interesting, have each other match under a different stipulation. So kind of a combination with what Zombies 40 had put, but taking the stipulation matches out of the cage. I lean more towards Mull's side of the picture. I'm more, because the wrestling I grew up with, I understood when they built for a steel cage match or any type of gimmick match, whether it be a bull rope match, a last man standing, steel cage, Skywalker's match, War Games, Elimination Chamber, any gimmick you want to say, it was a feud ender. You just didn't have some random, this is, like there were matches, Tigre Uno, his first match in the company is in a steel cage. Why? He hasn't built up a feud with anybody, obviously. And that's the point I was trying to make. The steel cage match, I understand having a steel cage match at the pay-per-view. They've done it, WCW did it for years with War Games, but they built up a feud to go into the War Games. The steel cage should be left for the feud. The Lethal Lockdown, which is basically their War Games, should be left for that feud. And then they could have another regular cage match where they've built it up for that match as well. Maybe the world title gets defended in the cage after a long, lengthy feud where the heel keeps cheating. Just different things, different ways you can go with it. I lean more towards the side of less is more. The less we see of a steel cage, the more special it becomes. Kind of like The Undertaker. The less we see of The Undertaker, the more special his appearances are. Just my opinion. To me, I think it's an easy crutch to try and jump ratings or jump pay-per-view buys by putting on these matches. However, you defeat the purpose that they originally were there for, and that was feud enders. Now, our question of the week for this week is, with MVP being the new authority figure, do you like MVP in that role better than Dixie Carter? Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter. Put it down where? Down there in the comments. Last but not least, we're going to go into our good segment of the week. Starting off with a return of one of my favorite TNA knockouts of all time, Angelina Love, who immediately calls out Velvet Sky to ask to reform the beautiful people. Velvet, a little bit surprised by it, says to give her a little bit to think about it. I think it's going to be... I hope they return. I liked what the beautiful people did. I think it's a good little faction. I like the idea that women's wrestling is important enough to have factions. I think going forward, a return of the beautiful people would be something that would help boost ratings. Sorry about that. I don't even know what raters are. But anyway, you get the fans that stopped watching that used to be beautiful people fans. I mean, there have been people that have tuned out of TNA that might go, hey, the beautiful people are back. Let me check that out. So to me, I think it's a good thing all around. Next up, and plus you add another solid women's wrestler into the division. Next up, we have the Bromans versus Sonata and Tigre Uno. Sonata, who looks like they're trying to bill him as the next great Muta. He looks awesome in the ring. I've seen him just a few times before the pay-per-view. I've seen him maybe a handful, maybe 4 or 5 times at most. So I can't pass judgment on how good he's going to be going forward. The times I've seen him, he has a very similar moveset to Muta. He does a beautiful moonsault for a finisher, which is a wonderful finisher. I kind of hate, and it's a different rant for a different day, I hate when moves like the moonsault, the DDT, the pile driver, the superplex, awesome looking moves that look devastating, are used as setup moves. I hate that with a passion. I love when you got a guy like Sonata who's got a beautiful move like this, like the moonsault, and uses it for a finisher. Him and Tigre Uno, who used to be Extreme Tiger down in Mexico, who I have more of an extensive knowledge of and more viewing. Tigre Uno, I think, if marketed right, could be the next Rey Mysterio Jr. He could be the next big, huge wrestler from Mexico. He has that similar charisma, that similar style, that similar innovation that Rey Mysterio has and had. A lot of the things that Tigre Uno does, no one's seen before. A lot of the movements he does, a lot of the speed which he does it. I think he's going to be a solid addition to the TNA roster. I think he's someone that I hope that they focus on going forward. Because like I said, I think he could be America's next Rey Mysterio. I really do. I think he's got it in him. He's that talented. He's got that much of a charisma that I don't know if he speaks American or not. I don't think it matters though. Rey Mysterio, for the most part in WCW, got over without ever hardly speaking. In WWE, he hardly speaks, although he speaks perfectly fine English. That may be a little bit of a hurdle for Tigre Uno. I don't see it being much, though. With as much Spanish-American fan base as there is in this country, or Spanish-Americans as there are in this country, I think the guy has a big fan base, even if he just speaks Mexican. I really think he has a bright future. The two newer guys, Tigre Uno and Sonata, win the match. I thought it was an awesome way to highlight the newer talent coming into TNA. I know Sonata is just a part-time basis borrow from Wrestle One. And how cool is it they show him talking with Kenji Muto, the great Muta, before the match in his native language. Anytime you see Muta on TV is a plus. Next up is the feud that I'm enjoying most in TNA right now, Samuel Shaw and Mr. Anderson. In a street fight which didn't really live up to the street fight moniker. The story of the match was the creepy half-mannequin Chrissy Hemme that Samuel Shaw treated like it was a person. Further going down the drain with his obsession, with his psychoticness. The evolution of this character, to me, has been one of the most interesting things in wrestling, I would say, within the last 20 years. I mean, this to me, and I don't know that, I haven't heard a lot of people picking up on it, but to me, I'm so captivated by this. This reminds me, and it's not the same at all, of Raven in ECW, or how different of a character it was, and how much a change from what the normal you would expect from a wrestling character, the Raven character was, is the same for me in this Samuel Shaw character, where how different and how much you would expect what a wrestler should act and talk and be like, how different this is from that. To me, it's absolutely fascinating television. I love the character, and Mr. Anderson, please, for the love of God, TNA, keep him face for a good solid 2-3 years. The only thing that hurts Mr. Anderson is the fact that you keep flip-flopping him back and forth from face and heel. He could be the face of your company if you allow him to stay face or allow him to stay heel. I always say keep him face because he is face right now. But anyway, that's my little thing. I like Anderson as a performer personally, and I think he brings a lot to this. He's a good veteran to pair with Samuel Shaw. Next up, speaking of veterans paired with the newer generation of TNA, we got Rockstar Spud versus Willow, who they're now freely admitting is Jeff Hardy's alter ego, although a more aggressive, more violent alter ego. He attacks Spud, gets himself disqualified, continues to beat him down. The thing that I dislike about this, and I don't want to turn this into a big anti-Jeff Hardy rant, Jeff Hardy himself is mega over. He's so popular. There's no denying it that he has a ton of fans everywhere he goes. For him to switch a character, which has been done before, I mean, Mick Foley wrestled as 3 different characters. Biss tried it with the Park and Biss thing. My only issue with this is he should change the moveset. And a perfect example will be when Mick Foley's Cactus Jack, his finisher is a double arm DDT. When Mick Foley is Mankind, his finisher is the Mandible Claw. When Mick Foley is Dude Love, it's sweet shin music. And sometimes he uses the other moves throughout, but he wrestles a different style. When Christopher Daniels wrestles as Curry Man, he wrestles a different style. You know, when different guys do different things, they show a different personality. Just like Dustin Rhodes, Goldust. Dustin Rhodes wrestling as himself is a big, tough redneck. Goldust is Goldust, the bizarre one. Just my opinion. Although I think they're going to go a little bit further and flesh out the character more. I dig that they're trying new things, I really do, and I hope it gets well. Just a little bone that I have with it, I hope that someone talks to Hardy and tells him, try this instead. Last but not least, my favorite part of the show, Bully Ray getting jumped by the heels, the Dixie Carter faction, getting back his retribution one by one, comes to Bobby Roode. At the end of the show, puts Roode through a table, setting up a major feud between 2 of the best workers in TNA, Bully Ray and Bobby Roode. That's how you start a feud. That's how you set it up. That's how you end the show with a non-wrestling segment and keep wrestling fans interested. What more can I say about it? You got 2 of the best talkers they've ever had in this company, and 2 of the best wrestlers, 2 of the biggest draws that they have in the company, ready to feud with each other. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go right into our ratings. Now, if you've seen our show before, we have a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 1's a Garrett Bischoff, 2's a Jesse Goddard, 3's a James Storm, 4's a Christopher Daniels, 5's a Bobby Roode. I'm going to give this one a 3, a James Storm. Some stuff to like. The youth movement and the newer wrestlers I'm really enjoying. Some stuff I didn't like so much. A lot of mediocre stuff made it through to the show, and they need to work on that. They need to get less mediocre, more good, more, I'm okay with a bad segment if it's something you try and you miss. I'm not okay with a bad segment if it's something that's been done over and over again and doesn't work. Willow is a perfect example. Just like I said, I'm okay with them swinging for the fences with the Willow character and missing, more so than I would be if 5 months down the road they're still trying with a Willow character that isn't working. But basically, that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.